The day had felt unusually heavy for Ethan Ward, though he didn't know why. Maybe it was the silence of his apartment, or the way the late afternoon sun hung low as if waiting for something to happen. He had dressed with more care than usual, smoothing out the wrinkles in his shirt and running a hand through his hair twice just to be sure tonight was supposed to be a chance. Maybe a small one, but still a chance. To move forward after years of quiet loneliness. But everything shifted the moment his phone buzzed with a simple message. "I'm sorry I can't make it." No explanation, no details, nothing. Just the cold finality of a canceled blind date. If you believe in kindness, compassion, and second chances, then please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps these stories reach more hearts. Ethan walked out of the restaurant with a strange mix of disappointment and numb acceptance. He wasn't angry. Life had taught him that people carry burdens they don't always speak of. But he felt something tugging at him. An instinct he couldn't explain, pulling him toward the parking lot instead of back to his car. Maybe he was just taking a moment to clear his head. Maybe something in him sensed that his night wasn't as finished as it seemed. He stepped outside into the warm breeze. The sky, painted with soft gold and pastel orange cars, drifted past the edge of the lot, families heading home from dinners or weekend errands. But one scene froze him mid-step. Near the far end of the lot, sitting against a navy blue SUV, was a woman with her knees pulled close, her shoulders shaking in silent, desperate sobs. Two small children sat beside her, a little boy around 5 and a girl no older than 4, watching their mother with wide, confused eyes. Their clothes were neat but worn, and the mother's blouse looked slightly rumpled, as if she'd tried her best to look put together. But life had other plans. Ethan didn't know her. At least, he didn't think he did. But something about the curve of her face, the chestnut waves of her hair, the soft blue shirt she wore. It struck him with sudden recognition. He had seen her picture earlier that day. This was Claire Bennett, the woman who had canceled on him just half an hour ago. And now she was right there, broken in the parking lot with 2 children leaning against her for comfort. He hesitated, not wanting to intrude. But the sight of her shaking hands and tear-stained cheeks pulled him forward. There was no moment of introduction, no awkwardness, no question of what was appropriate. Only an unspoken truth between strangers, that sometimes life brings people together at the exact moment they need it most. Claire lifted her head, eyes red, surprise flickering across her face as she recognized him. She looked ashamed, almost afraid, and Ethan felt a painful squeeze in his chest. It was the look of someone who hadn't wanted to burden anyone, someone who had hoped to hold herself together just long enough to get through the night. As she tried to compose herself, Ethan understood without needing words. She hadn't canceled because she changed her mind about meeting him. She had canceled because something had gone terribly wrong, and she didn't have the strength to pretend everything was okay. He sat down a respectful distance from her, the warm pavement beneath him grounding the moment Claire tried to explain, stumbling through apologies and hurried breaths. But Ethan gently shook his head, not dismissing, not rejecting, but silently telling her she didn't have to justify her pain. He saw the exhaustion in her eyes, the heartbreak she tried to mask for the sake of her children, and he felt the weight of her story before she ever spoke it. As the minutes passed, Claire's emotions slowly unwound. She told him the truth with trembling honesty, how she had been a single mother for the past 3 years, after her husband abandoned them for another life, another woman, another version of himself. How she had tried tirelessly to build a stable home for her kids, juggling 2 jobs and night classes to secure a better future. How she had finally, hesitantly, agreed to a blind date arranged by a mutual friend after years of telling herself she didn't deserve happiness yet. And how, just as she was leaving the house, her babysitter canceled last minute, leaving her with no choice but to take her children with her while she figured out what to do. Claire had sat there in the parking lot, heart pounding, kids in the back seat asking innocent questions, and she realized she couldn't walk into a fancy restaurant like that. She couldn't pretend to be someone carefree or polished or date-ready. So she had canceled. But after pressing send, she fell apart, overwhelmed by the crushing mix of guilt, loneliness, and the constant pressure to remain strong. Ethan listened quietly, the sincerity in her words settling around them like evening air. She wasn't weak. She was exhausted. She wasn't dramatic. She was stretched thin from carrying everything alone. Something inside Ethan shifted in that moment, a deep understanding rising in his chest. He realized she hadn't canceled because she didn't want him. She canceled because she didn't want to disappoint him. Yet all he felt was admiration. Not pity. Admiration. As the sun dipped lower, painting soft shadows across the parking lines, Claire's children warmed up to him. The little boy, Lucas, offered Ethan a half-melted chocolate from his pocket, and Ethan accepted it like it was a priceless gift. The little girl, Emily, tugged at her shoelaces and proudly showed him the butterfly design on her sneakers. They didn't see him as a stranger anymore. They saw him as someone safe, someone gentle, someone who didn't make their mother cry harder. Ethan suggested something simple and kind, a nearby family-friendly diner instead of the fancy place they had planned. Somewhere bright, warm, and welcoming, where kids could laugh without judgment and no one cared if life wasn't perfect. Claire hesitated, afraid of being a burden, but the hopeful look on her children's faces nudged her forward. Inside the diner, the world softened. The scent of fries and warm bread filled the air, the sound of clinking plates mixing with cheerful conversation. Lucas and Emily colored on kids' menus while Claire slowly regained her breath, watching Ethan with a mixture of gratitude and disbelief. He didn't treat her like an obligation. He didn't act inconvenienced or disappointed. He acted like someone who was exactly where he wanted to be. As the evening unfolded, something delicate and unexpected began to form. Not romance, not yet, but something deeper. Respect, connection, a fragile but powerful sense of hope. Claire confessed how terrified she felt trying to raise children alone, how some days she worried she wasn't enough, how she wanted someone to see her not just as a mother struggling to stay afloat, but as a woman with dreams still alive inside her. Ethan understood more than she expected. He shared how loneliness had wrapped around him after losing both parents within a few years, how his family home felt too quiet now, how he longed for a life filled with laughter, responsibility, and meaning, not just routines and empty rooms. They weren't two broken people trying to fix each other. They were two incomplete worlds finding a place to gently connect. Hours passed without either noticing. When they finally walked back to the parking lot, the sky had turned deep blue, sprinkled with stars. Claire buckled her kids into their car seats, whispering goodnight kisses, while Ethan stood nearby, unsure what to say, but knowing the night had changed something in both of them. Before Claire closed the door, Emily reached out and handed Ethan her crayon drawing. A stick figure family holding hands under a bright sun. 4 figures instead of 3. Claire froze, embarrassed, but Ethan's eyes softened as he gently folded the drawing and slipped it into his pocket with quiet reverence. Sometimes children see the future long before adults do. As Claire stood there under the glow of the street lamp, she whispered that she had never expected kindness from a stranger in her most fragile moment. Ethan simply told her that she had been strong for too long, and tonight, someone else could be strong for her. Before you read the ending, if this story has touched your heart even a little, please like the video, share it, and subscribe, so more beautiful stories can find the people who need them. The weeks that followed were slow, warm, and filled with simple moments that stitched their lives together. Not dramatic gestures, not sudden confessions, just consistent presence. Ethan helped Claire with grocery runs when her schedule was tight. Claire invited him to Lucas's school art show. Emily insisted he attend her ballet practice, where she twirled clumsily but proudly for him. And each time, Claire watched with quiet wonder, realizing this wasn't fleeting kindness. This was a man who showed up. One evening, after a long day, Claire asked Ethan why he stayed, why he cared so deeply. He answered in the simplest, most honest way. Because love wasn't about timing or perfection. It was about choosing someone even when life was messy, because her children felt like home before he understood why. Because her tears in the parking lot had shown him her strength, not her weakness, and as Claire leaned gently into him, the children laughing nearby, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Safety, partnership, hope. Before the video ends, tell me in the comments, what part of Claire's journey touched your heart the most? Sometimes the most beautiful stories begin at the exact moment everything seems to be falling apart. And sometimes, a canceled date is just destiny clearing the path for something far more meaningful.